Hey everybody, it's Pastor Greg here. I am still buzzing from our service last week. Easter Sunday was awesome. It was amazing. The energy was amazing. It was packed. And I want to say something specifically to you if you live in the tri-state area. If you're in New York, Connecticut, or New Jersey, I want to see you here in the place. The feedback that we get so often is from those who have come for the first time, who may have experienced us online, is that it's unlike anything they've ever experienced. That watching online is amazing and awesome, but when you come here, when you feel the love, when you get the hugs, when you see the smiles, when you feel the joy and celebration that's here in this place, it's unlike anything you've ever experienced. So I want to see you. Look at your calendar now. Pick a Sunday. We start service, our doors open at 10:30 a.m. and we start promptly at 11 a.m. I look forward to meeting you. I look forward to seeing you real soon. We're continuing our series this month based on the teachings of Buddha and Jesus, the lotus and the lily. Let's get into today's message. Life is good and only good. It's a powerful awareness. When you get this, it'll change your life. It's a powerful awareness to think about the fact that the flow is only good. Think about it. If there's water flowing through a pipe, right, it's good flow. And then if something gets stuck in the pipe, right, if there's something in there or you block it, then all of a sudden it's not good because the water is not flowing. Not because the water isn't trying to flow, not that the water isn't still there, it's just that we're blocking it. It's the same thing with the goodness in our life. It's the same thing with what we desire to experience in our life. When the good is not happening, it's only because we're blocking it, which gives us the power to stop blocking it, to lower the resistance, and allow the good to come in. Yes, yes? Powerful, powerful, powerful. Good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. How's everybody doing? Wonderful, wonderful. So, just a brief recap of last week. Last week was the cross and the Bodhi tree, and we looked at the symbolism of the tree of life, the cross where Jesus was crucified, and the Bodhi tree where Buddha experienced his enlightenment. And we looked at the fact that each of us are actually a Buddha. Each of us are actually the Christ. And we talked about what that means. And if you didn't hear the message, if you weren't there, please go back online to YouTube and check it out. We're going to move forward with this week's message. So I recall that one of the things that I said last week, I talked about my experience in seminary and how once I came to this realization that a lot of what I believed about the Bible was not true, it then took me to other traditions, and particularly it took me to Buddhism. And so I had this watershed moment. And I loved studying the teachings of Buddha, and I loved looking at Buddha's teaching on the end of suffering and how do we end suffering, and Buddha's teaching on wisdom and compassion. And I remember during that study, it was the summertime of 2001, I remember feeling troubled because as I began to think about and study compassion from the perspective of Buddha, I really felt like, I said, it feels like compassion is leaving the earth. And I was having a conversation with my father, who's also a minister and pastor, and I was having that conversation with him that I said, I just feel like compassion is leaving the earth, and it was really troubling me, right? I just I wanted people to be more compassionate. I wanted to feel that. And again, that was in the summer of 2001, and of course, not a few months later, in September, we had 9/11, right? And although that event was very horrific, one of the things that happened after that event was an overwhelming outpour of compassion and generosity and love. And that was interesting to me because, it troubled me because I said, do we need tragedy? Does tragedy have to happen for us to be compassionate? Do people have to be killed? Does there have to be war? Do people have to lose their homes before we become compassionate? It really, really troubled me. But at the same time, it was still beautiful to experience, right? I mean, we're here in New York. We experienced it. It was beautiful to see that and watch people come together and see people open their homes and all of the things that happened and took place. It was a beautiful thing. And it reminded me of something that's a fundamental teaching almost across any faith tradition. We know it as the Golden Rule, right? That the Golden Rule in some form exists in every tradition, and we know that. Now, many times in some traditions, it's taught in the negative. It's taught what not to do, like don't be mean to people, right? That's a way of saying it, right? But you could also say, love everyone. It could be a command to what to do rather than what not to do. But it's there in every tradition, and I want to just highlight some examples. First, we'll look at Buddhism, and we find it in the teachings of Buddha and in Buddhist scripture in many places. So here's one example. Comparing oneself to others in such terms as, just as I am, so they are, just as they are, so am I, he should neither kill nor cause others to kill. That's in Sutta Nipata. Now, in the Dhammapada, we have this. One who, while himself seeking happiness, oppresses with violence other beings who also desire happiness, will not attain happiness thereafter. We hear that. The golden rule is in there, right? It's talking about how you treat someone. You should treat them the way that you treat yourself. In another text, we have, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Nice wisdom, right? We get that, right? And the final one, putting oneself in the place of another, one should not kill nor cause another to kill. Now that's in Buddhism. Now if we go to Judaism and Christianity, we have a couple of other examples. And here in Judaism, what's interesting, these may be texts that you're not familiar with, Tobit and Sirach, which are in what's known as the Apocrypha, which is a part of the Catholic version of the Bible, and accepted within Judaism, but not necessarily accepted all throughout Christianity. So in Tobit, we have this: do to no one what you yourself dislike. In Sirach, we have, recognize that your neighbor feels as you do. Keep in mind your own dislikes. Now, there was a contemporary of Jesus at the time that Jesus is believed to have been alive. There was a Jewish teacher. Well, Jesus was a Jewish teacher as well. His name was Hillel. And he wrote this when was asked to sum up the Torah. He said this: that which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. That is the whole Torah. The rest is the explanation. Go and learn. Now, of course, then we have Jesus, which we have several passages where Jesus kind of touches on this golden rule. Now, in Matthew and Luke, we have this: do to others what you would want them to do to you. So Jesus' command was in the affirmative, right? Instead of saying hurt not others, he says do to others what you want them to do to you. But then in the book of Luke, we have what's probably most familiar, where he was speaking to the disciples, and they asked him, what is the greatest commandment, right? And he says, well, the law and the prophets can be summed up this way: love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, love him with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's the one we probably are most familiar with, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. And so as I read through this list, you all can see that there's a harmony that happens, right? Where we went from Buddhism to Judaism to Christianity, and yet underneath it all was basically saying, be nice to people, right? It's basically saying, treat people the way that you want to be treated. You know what it's like, what it feels like to be hurt. You know what it's like to be blamed or shamed. You know what it's like to be physically harmed, maybe. Don't do that to others, right? And there's the larger wisdom there where Buddha says that one, while himself seeking happiness, if he oppresses with violence other beings who also desire happiness, will not attain happiness hereafter. And we'll deal with that a little more in a minute. But as I was in this place of thinking about compassion and talking to my father, and then, of course, we had this experience with 9/11, what came to me was the reason why compassion, I guess, was so big for me, and what I began to see and realize was this idea of love your neighbor as yourself was only part of the equation, if you will. That, again, it sounds good, be nice to people. It's good to be nice, and that's wonderful, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. And that's the way I was raised and kind of taught, that it's just good to be nice to people, treat people well. But what I've come to understand is the deeper teaching behind this phrase is that it is love your neighbor as yourself because your neighbor is yourself. And so this is what then prompts us and moves us into actually applying this golden rule to our lives. So each of us has a golden ticket. And if you're familiar with the wonderful original Willy Wonka movie, You know the song, right? I've got a golden ticket. And, you know, I love the song. It's a beautiful moment. The last golden ticket is found, and he goes to his grandfather, and they dance and they sing the song, I've got a golden ticket. I don't remember the rest of the words, but they have a golden ticket, and it's awesome, right? And it's an exciting moment because they realize that change is coming to their life. Now, we could just talk about the fact that we have a golden ticket, that there's this golden rule that we know about, and it's wonderful to intellectually look at the fact that in Buddhism, from ancient times to Judaism to Christianity to now, there's this golden rule. There's this golden ticket that we have, but it's not just enough to sing about it or talk about it. We actually have to live it or use it. Because, of course, in the movie, you had to go to Willy Wonka and you had to present your ticket in order to get the grand tour of his wonderful chocolate factory. It wasn't enough just to sing about and dance around about having a golden ticket. You had to show up on the day that the ticket said, and now you can go in and have this experience. So we're going to talk about our golden ticket, and I'm going to answer 3 questions. What is the golden ticket, which we've talked a little bit about? Why should we use the golden ticket? And then how do we use our golden ticket? So what is the golden ticket? Well, first and foremost, it's a spiritual practice. And it's a spiritual practice that we must use and or learn in this life or the next. At some point, you're going to use your golden ticket, and you have an opportunity. It's always your choice. To love your neighbor as yourself because your neighbor is yourself, that's a choice, right? It's a ticket that you hold, but you may not use it. The other thing is that the golden ticket is a practice that allows us to experience our connectedness and our oneness. Have you ever experienced, whether it's through volunteerism or giving to someone maybe some money on the street or just doing something kind for another, in that moment when you do that, don't you feel like you know them a little better? Don't you immediately feel like something happened between the two of you and your energy's connected and now you're more one than you were before? They could have been a complete stranger, but something ties you two together in that moment. Practicing and using your golden ticket is what brings you into that place. Using your golden ticket will end the sense of separation. Because it's an interesting thing, and I like to use the human body sometimes to think about this, right? Because we're all these individuals and we're moving around and we don't have a sense that we're one because we're individual people, right? But when you look at me and you look at my body, do you see all of the individual systems that make up this body that allows it to function? Right? I have all of the different systems that allow me to live and be alive and the different parts of my body, right? That make up the one person that is Greg, yet there are all these individual cells and systems, right? And so often as we live our lives, we look at life as though we're separate, as though we're disconnected, right? But there actually is no separation, just like there's no separation between the different systems in your body or my body. And if you use your golden ticket, you'll be able to experience that sense of oneness. You'll be able to experience the end of that sense of separation. And so then it teaches us, as we use the golden ticket, it teaches us that what we give to our brothers and sisters, we're actually giving to ourselves. This is one of the profound and beautiful teachings in A Course in Miracles, that it talks about this often, that when we're giving forgiveness to another, when we're giving kindness, when we're giving compassion, when we're giving our wisdom, when we're giving our time, when we're giving our finances to another, what we're actually doing is giving to ourselves, because there's no separation. There is absolutely no separation. So then we have the second question. Why should we use the golden ticket? Again, it's wonderful information, right? There's this golden rule. Why should we use it? Well, the first thing is that the golden ticket, using the golden ticket, it's your key to happiness, it's your key to freedom, and it's your key to success. Now, A Course in Miracles in Lesson 102, it says something that I love. It says, be happy, for your only function here is happiness. And the way to do that is by using your golden ticket, by bringing compassion, by bringing forgiveness, by doing unto others as you would have them do to you, by not waiting for someone to be nice to you, but actually choosing to be nice, period, because you recognize that this is part of your freedom and your happiness. If you don't like the way A Course in Miracles says it, I love the way Abraham Hicks says it. It says this: the basis of life is freedom, the purpose of life is joy, and the result of life is growth. And so if the purpose of life is joy, at any point that you're withholding from your brother or sister, at any point that you're closed up or blocked up and choosing not to be nice, at any point that you're choosing to hurt or harm another in any way with our words, through our actions, through our deeds, or again through withholding in some way, we're not living in joy. We're not living in freedom. We're not living in happiness. And what's interesting about it, at the point that we live in that place, we have blocked ourselves off from the freedom, success, joy, prosperity, abundance that we desire. And so why do we use the golden ticket? Because this is what keeps your vibration clear so that you can have what you want. Like if you don't use your golden ticket, then those, I would say those or us, because we've all done it, when we choose not to use our golden ticket, somewhere in our life, we're experiencing things that we don't want. And we may wonder why. If you're wondering why today, I invite you to look in your pocket or your purse, pull out your golden ticket and start using it. Things will change. Things will begin to change. Now, why should we use our golden ticket? I just kind of spoke to this, but this is the key to being free of unforgiveness. Because if you step into that place, and I can only speak for myself, but we've all done things that we needed to be forgiven for, right? We've all made mistakes. And it feels good when somebody says, you know what, it's okay, or I accept your apology. And you really know that it's all good and it's clear, right? That feels good. So if you know that, if you begin to do that for others, right? If you begin to extend that same thing to another, this will then keep your vibration clear. It'll keep your pathway clear, as we just talked about blocking the pipe, the flow of the water, right? It keeps that water flowing, the water of goodness, the water of what you want, the water of what you desire, right? It keeps that flowing. This is why we must use the golden ticket. And then, again, the final reason why we must use the golden ticket is because this is how we actually live as the Buddha or as the Christ. We talked about it last week, that the Buddha simply means one who has waked up. Well, if you're not using your golden ticket, you went back to sleep. Right? We've all done it from time to time, but if anything that we talked about last week was exciting to you, right? If you like the idea of understanding and hearing that I am the Buddha and that I am the Christ and I am the light, well, you got to use your golden ticket, right? And it's not a coincidence that we even use this color, golden, as the Buddha and the Christ represent light, as the Buddha and the Christ represent the sun, and as the sun is so often referred to as being a golden light, right? As we look at the imagery all throughout ancient time, there's always this sense of, gold being associated with royalty and being associated with glory and grandeur. It's who and what you are. You're royal. You're glorious, right? And so using this golden ticket actually is how you are standing in that place of the Christ. You are standing in that place as the Buddha and loving your brother as yourself, your sister as yourself. So we have the final question. How do I use the golden ticket, right? We know what it is. We understand that now. It's a spiritual practice is what it is. It's a spiritual practice that we're either going to learn in this life or the next. It's always our choice. And in each given moment, really, we're always choosing. We're either picking up the ticket and using it, or we're throwing it away, right? And then we're picking it up again and using it, or we're throwing it away. So we understand that it's a spiritual practice, and it's a spiritual practice. It's the kind of thing that I can't prove it to you, but if you try it out, you'll prove it to yourself. And experience is the best teacher. Abraham Hicks says that so often. I think that's important, right? We can talk about words, and we can pull ancient words, and it's wonderful to do that, and we can pull modern words, and it's wonderful to do that. But experience is the best teacher. You got to try it out for yourself. You got to say, okay, I've been hearing this stuff at Celebration for weeks or months, and I've been listening to the messages, and they keep talking about this stuff. let me try it out. And then you'll know for yourself, right? And no one can convince you otherwise. So we know that it's a spiritual practice, right? And then we know why we should use it. Because actually, I want to have an amazing life. That I want to be happy. I want to be successful. I want to be abundant. I want to be prosperous. And I'm learning that, oh, okay, I need to use this golden ticket, this thing that Buddha spoke about, this thing that Jesus spoke about. Different times, but they spoke about the same thing. I need to use this because I want to have a successful life. I want to have the life that I desire. So now the question is, how do I use it? And I want to go back to 3 of the texts that I highlighted. The first one is from Buddha. Just as I am, so are they. Just as they are, so am I. So how do you use it? Apply this text right here and right now. Remind yourself on a daily basis when you see somebody on the street that may be annoying, or when you see somebody in the subway that you might even be afraid of, take a breath, take a moment, and speak these words to yourself. Just as I am, so are they. Just as they are, so am I. And I guarantee that if you take the time to do that, sometimes, if in A Course in Miracles, you'll hear the lesson, I want to see this differently, or above all else, I want to see this differently. It's another way to ask the same question. It's like, I know that there's something about the two of us that actually makes us one. That this human being right now is doing something that I don't personally like, but yet I know that's still my brother, yet I still know that's my sister. And so if I take a breath and bring myself to that moment, bring myself to the present moment, and speak these words, I will find my own unity. I might see that person that is yelling and being angry and being annoying represents a fearful place that I've been in. Because sometimes when we're fearful, then we put up masks of anger so nobody can see the soft place, the hurt place that's really going on. Maybe that's what's going on, right? But I got to step into this place of realizing that we're actually one. And I know what that feels like. I know what that looks like because I've done that in my own life. Right? Where I've put something in front, some behavior, some way of being that is totally unlike who and what I am, but I put that in front so that people can't see the real me, right? And so if I'm on the outside of that, I can say, okay, wait, this is my brother, this is my sister. Just as I am, so are they. Just as they, so am I. Let me step into this oneness. Let me pull out my ticket and see what's going on. Let me pull out and see what's going on. Now we go to Judaism. Do to no one what you yourself dislike. Has anybody ever experienced that? Where you knew the thing you were doing or chose to do or chose to say to someone was the very thing that you didn't like? I hate it when people do this. And then you go out and do the exact same thing to somebody else. I mean, I'll raise my hand. I've done that, right? Right? But if we pull out our ticket, do to no one what you yourself dislike, right? So that could look a bunch of different ways. Maybe you needed to communicate to someone, something to your boss, for instance, and you like to have all the information. You like for people to communicate everything to you, right? And so you have an opportunity in this case. I could tell them this information, or I could not, and they could find out another way. But you know that you like for people to give you all the information. Right? So then you have a choice to pull out your ticket and say, I'm going to do what I appreciate, right? I'm going to go ahead and do this and treat them the way that I want to be treated, right? That's just a small example, right? We won't even get into bigger examples, but when we think about do to no one what you yourself dislike, if you pull out your ticket and speak those words to yourself as a decision gate, should I do this thing? Should I not do this thing, right? Should I tell them about this? Should I not tell them about this, right? You may have a bit of information that someone else doesn't know, and, well, I don't want to be in the middle of it. Well, you can ask yourself, would you like to know this information? Would it feel good for you to have this information? Do to no one what you yourself dislike. That's in the book of Tobit, again, from the Apocrypha. And then we have, in the Apocrypha in Sirach, recognize that your neighbor feels as you do, and keep in mind your own dislikes. It's kind of similar, right? But it's taking us back into this place of oneness, that your neighbor feels as you do. That person that may be a stranger, that may come from a completely different culture, that may have been born in a different place in the world, actually feels as you do, right? This is what's so awesome and beautiful about technology and television programs and great documentaries, where we get to see how those who don't live where we live, and you may come into the conversation thinking that they're an other. You may come into the conversation thinking that they don't see life the way you do. But generally speaking, what I love about programs like that is you come away realizing that everybody just wants to have a happy life. Everybody just wants their family to grow up and have good opportunities, better opportunities than what they had. We stigmatize certain cultures or certain neighborhoods. Everybody really wants the same thing. The scripture says this: recognize that your neighbor feels as you do, right? And it even goes a little deeper, as news of police violence, it's back in the news on this past week. And I've talked about this often, and it's just true that even when we're seeing these experiences of police officers murdering innocent people, what's really happening, what's honestly absolutely happening, is on the side of the police officer, we're seeing their fear, even if it's unfounded, because they have been taught, they have been given a whole mountain of belief about that they should be afraid of these individuals, right? But if they could step into this, if they use their golden ticket, right, and recognize that your neighbor feels as you do, that this young man is actually somebody that just wants to live like you, that this young man is somebody that just wants to get home just like you, that this young man is somebody that has a family just like you, they would be able to then stop, take a breath, use their ticket, and then see the situation differently. So at any point that we're seeing this type of violence, that we're seeing this type of thing, it is fear in operation. Right? A Course in Miracles is very clear. Every act of fear, every act is either love or a call for love. Right? And so even as we're looking at these acts that we label and we judge and we dislike, right? We have the opportunity to either label it as something we don't like, or we have the opportunity to see it as a call for love. Course in Miracles goes even further. If you knew that your brother or sister was asking for help, would you say, "Nah, I ain't helping you"? See, if you knew that, right? And this is what we have to understand. Our golden ticket helps us to see this if we use it. If somebody was asking for help, would you say, "No, I'm not helping you"? And what we have to come to understand, it's a spiritual understanding. Again, we'll get it in this life or the next. Right? We have to come to understand that it is actually a call for help when someone is in anger, when someone is acting from fear. Justified or unjustified, I'm not saying that fear is justified, but I recognize that that's what causes people to do things like that. That's all we're saying. I'm not justifying the fear. But it is only from fear. It is only from fear. When we lash out against our brothers and sisters in anger, right? Against our friends or our spouses or our partners, there's really fear there. We're trying to protect ourselves. We think that we can be attacked, and so we do something first to try to prevent ourselves from being hurt. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Recognize that your neighbor feels as you do, and keep in mind your own dislikes. So then we have the last piece from Jesus. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind and soul, and then goes on to love your neighbor as yourself. And I love that one, first of all, Jesus, as he was a Jewish teacher, was quoting the book of Deuteronomy, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. He's quoting words that are attributed to Moses. Moses didn't write that book, but it's attributed to him. And what I love about this, and if you get nothing else from today, hear this, that the wisdom underneath that, we hear that and we hear love the Lord your God, and we start thinking about some God in the sky, heaven and hell, somebody judging us. It's particularly when we think about the Old Testament, right? We start to think about, booming hellfire and all of these things. But there was a deeper teaching that was actually being spoken here. Now, here at CSC, we know and we teach that God is not outside of us, but it's within us. It's a present reality within us. And so when we hear this, as Jesus said, it's the greatest commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. It's talking about the Lord the law, the God, the source, the magnificence, the brilliance, the power that's within you. And then love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself, right? And so what is actually being offered to us, what's being talked about here as we use our golden ticket, first and foremost, before we can even begin to love our brother and sister, we have to love ourselves with our heart, mind, and soul. Because you are an individualized expression of God. As I talked about, this idea that we're individual, but yet there's one. When you zoom out from the earth, you don't see all of the different people and places that we are. There's just one beautiful ball, right? And depending on how far away you are, it looks like a speck of dust, right? And so in the same way, we are the individualized expression of God, and we recognize that we must begin to love ourselves first. That's the first use of your ticket. If you go deeper into the teachings of Buddhism, and Buddha speaks on compassion, what's most important with compassion and wisdom, first, you must be compassionate with yourself. And it is only by learning to be compassionate with yourself that then you can give that love to your brother or sister, that then you can give that forgiveness to your brother and sister, because you've learned to forgive yourself. You've learned to no longer hold yourself in shame. You've learned to no longer hold yourself in blame. You've learned to be easy with yourself, as I love to say. You've learned that. And you've learned it because you know that by doing that, then life begins to open up. Then life begins to expand. Then the abundance that you seek shows up. Then the prosperity that you seek shows up. So first and foremost, again, if you hear nothing else, you have this golden ticket. Use it for, with, and on yourself. Because that will then be the key to how you can begin to extend that same love to your brother and sister. Let's stand this moment. Each of us has a golden ticket. Each of us has an opportunity and a possibility to operate in love or fear. Each of us has this golden ticket, and at each moment, in every interaction with ourselves or with another, which is still ourselves, we can use this ticket. We can use this idea that just as I am, so they are. Just as they are, so am I. We can step into this place of oneness, that there's no separation, that my neighbor feels as I feel. We could step into this place of no longer doing to others the very thing that we dislike. And so, Mother, Father, God, we stand here grateful for these deep and ancient teachings that have been taught for ages and ages across many generations and many traditions and many interpretations. We are grateful that this truth, this golden ticket, this golden rule has stood the test of time. And today we are making a new commitment to live from this place. We are making a new commitment first to ourselves, to love ourselves unconditionally, and to use our golden ticket at any moment that we are about to shame ourselves, at any moment that we're about to blame ourselves, at any moment that we're about to put ourselves in the prison of unforgiveness. We are choosing here and now, making a new commitment to use the golden ticket on ourselves and on our lives. In this moment, we free ourselves from anything that we have held over ourselves for years and years and years. It is gone now because we have chosen to use this golden rule, this golden ticket. And as we extend this love to ourselves, we now open ourselves up to begin to extend this love to our brothers and sisters. Maybe not to the whole entire world in this moment, but we can start with those that are closest to us. We can start with those that we work with. We can start with our family. We can start with those that are in our immediate area of influence. And we make a declaration that on this week, we're going to pull out our golden ticket. On this week, we're going to do it a little differently. On this week, we're going to choose to see it a little differently. We're going to take a breath, pull out our ticket, and read the words, just as I am, so they are. Just as they are, so am I. We're going to remember and remind ourselves that we are one, that there is no separation, that separation is really just an illusion, and we zoom out from that place and go back to the oneness. And as we do that, we will find new ideas. We will find compassionate ideas. We will find generous ideas. We will find kind ideas. We will find loving ideas. And as we stand in that place and we get strong and comfortable in that place, then we will begin to extend that ticket to the greater world. We extend that to our cities, and we extend that to our governments, and we extend that to our police officers, and we extend that to those in our neighborhoods. We extend that to our neighbors above us and our neighbors below us. We extend that to the people on the subway, and we extend that to the entire world. We extend that to every culture. We extend that to every political leader. We extend that to everyone, because we recognize that the more that we free ourselves from judgment, the more that we free ourselves from unforgiveness, the more that we pull out this ticket and use it, we will experience life in a grander, more powerful, more bountiful, more profound way. And so as we have made this commitment just for this week, just within the sphere of our influence, we also make this commitment with expectation, because we know that we are not doing this alone. Oh my God. We know that we are not doing this alone. We are not doing this in and of our own strength. But by simply moving into the action of using the golden ticket, of looking at the golden ticket, of remembering that we have the golden ticket, the very power of the universe sweeps in to support us. The very power of the universe sweeps in. The very power of love itself that we call unconditional, it sweeps in to support us. And that is where the miracle happens. That is where salvation happens. That is where we find and experience who and what we truly are. I am so grateful to know that we are not doing it alone. And so it is with expectation that we now release these words, knowing that life is good and only good. We lower the resistance, we let go of the blocks, and we watch, we look, we wait for, and we expect the goodness in our lives. Together, we lift up our voices and we say, Amen, Amen. Ashe. Ashe. And so it is.